Okay, good morning, everyone. Today is the last day for the HEADSTART week. We're presenting cybersecurity as a special key-enabled technology for the project. And yeah, I'm going to be the presenter for today. We're going to have as well Alvaro, project leader, that is going to introduce the project, and as well the collaboration of Julie from Mexico and my colleague Miguel, who is going to help me with a Slido tool that we are going to explain right in a few seconds. First, just the agenda, just the introduction, how this webinar is going to work, an introduction from Alvaro of the HEADSTART project. Then I'm going to go through different stages of the project to give to you an overview of the full project. And then I'm going to address directly cybersecurity in the different stages. Of the project, particularities of cybersecurity, how we integrate in the method, how we try to fully cover cybersecurity and integrate in the process, and which are the next steps for HEADSTART. And yeah, just a few words to remember to you how this webinar is going to work. First, you have to know that this webinar is being recorded. So this webinar and all the webinars that we were doing this week. So if you want more information, or you want to share it, or you want to know more about HEADSTART, you always go to the HEADSTART website and address there and check the content of the webinars, as well with the different information of the project. A particularity of this webinar, we are not going to address questions from the platform. We use another tool called Slido, and this Slido, it provides us a way to communicate with you as an expert. So how we can gain feedback while I'm doing the presentation to know more about your opinion about different sections that I present to you, and it's really easy to use this application. There's not a need for a special app or whatever. Just go to your web browser in a computer or in a tablet or smartphone. You go to slido.com, you introduce the hashtag HEADSTART, and you are going to then be connected with the HEADSTART. Then you can there address your questions. You can, when I'm going to put the logo of this logo that you see in the corner in the slides, means that we want to interact with you. So then you're going to see as well questions in the Slido that I address to you, and it's a procedure that we are going to have here to do the presentation. And now Alvaro, the coordinator, is going to present HEADSTART project. Hi, Alvaro.
Hi, Joaquin. Thank you very much for your presentation. Well, thank you also for the opportunity to speak about the HEADSTART project, to give you an idea of what we are doing, and then we move on to the core of today's webinar. HEADSTART, harmonized European solution to test automated road transport. It was the granted project in the former Horizon 2020 ARTO1 call back in 2018. It's a research and innovation action, and it started the 1st of January with a 36 months duration. So we are in the middle, very close to the middle of our project. It's got a budget of 6 million euros, fully funded by the European Commission, European Union, and we are 17 partners involved in the HEADSTART project. Just wanted to highlight that we have our webpage. Please visit the webpage for more information. You can download also all the deliverables that we have finished for the moment. And also, I would like to invite you to follow us on our social media, so you got a quicker view of all the different news and events that we have. Okay, so this is the HEADSTART consortium in a nutshell. Okay, we've got this spread between the different member states in Europe, and I would like to spend 1 minute in this consortium, because what we try to do here is to put together a very relevant community of stakeholders in connected and automated driving testing. So if you look, we have different profiles of partners. For example, RDW is a technical service for the type approval authority in the Netherlands, which is the same as A+IDIADA for the Spanish ministry. We also have Euro NCAP accredited laboratories. So, for example, TNO, BAST in Germany, A+IDIADA again in Spain. If you look at the consortium, we also have leaders of or coordinators of relevant European projects dealing with connected automated driving. For example, TNO is the coordinator of the Ensemble project on track tuning, or ICCS is the coordinator of ICT for CART, or ERTICO is also the coordinator of Arcade, which you might also know as the support action of the ART calls, and different types of partners. So we have research, like virtual vehicle today, we have also industry, Toyota, Iveco, FCA, as OEMs, and for example, Tier 1's Valeo. If you look also, it's not there, you cannot see it, but behind SAFER, when you see that, it's SAFER Joint Research Unit. So behind that label, we've got also as partners in the consortium, research centers, universities like Chalmers, research centers as RISE, Volvo Technologies, or Veoneer are also part of this consortium. So in a nutshell, we try to bring together many of the stakeholders that are actively involved in validation activities on automated driving. Please, we can move on to the next slide. These are the project's objectives. So in a nutshell, what we are doing in HEADSTART is to define testing and validation procedures of connected and automated driving functions. And here we've got some additional things. For example, we are including what we call key enabling technologies, which are defined in our project as communications, cybersecurity, which is the topic of today, and positioning. We are also cross-linking what we call the test instances. So it's not just one of them. We are trying to make the best of all of them, including simulation, proving ground, and real-world field tests. And finally, we are taking into account who we consider are going to be the end users of the project results. And here we have defined 3 key user groups. From one side, technology developers. This would include not just academia, but also the industry, OEMs, Tier 1s, and so on. We also have consumer testing, which is the neutral way, or speaking about, for example, the NCAP programs, and in particular Euro NCAP, as we are based in Europe. And finally, type approval. Okay, so this is dealing more with regulations and legislation. 2 important things we would like to say here. It's not, we are a research and innovation action. We are not a policy maker. So, for example, we are not going to make a new regulation. Okay, this is not our purpose. Or we are not going to make a new protocol in Euro NCAP, because it's not our responsibility. What we want to achieve in HEADSTART is that in dialogue with these organizations, with these stakeholders, create the building blocks that will enable to have robust regulation or robust repetitive protocols like the ones that they have in Euro NCAP. And how we are going to do this in a time frame. Okay, so we've got these 5 different stages that we are following within the project. The first 2 ones are more advanced, which is 1, identification. So we made a lot of effort at the beginning of the project in order to identify what is going on out there in testing and validation. And there are a lot of things going on out there, not just in Europe, but also in the US, but also in Japan, and well, the rest of the world. There is a lot of activity there. So we made this a study of the state of the art, what's going on there. Why? Because one of the mottos of this project is to minimize fragmentation. So we want to base ourselves on what's already been done by other projects. So to have this head start on this project. And what we did is to understand what are the commonalities and what are the gaps between all these different initiatives, for example, in a scenario-based validation approach. Okay. Why all this? To create this harmonized methodology. We had a webinar on Monday. We have a glimpse on it today. This harmonized methodology that it's able to adapt to all these different needs. Okay, we need to avoid fragmentation. We need to work together, and this is what we want to do within the project. We are now entering strongly in our third stage, which is definition and development, which is where we actually implement whatever is needed in the project based on our methodology, based on what is needed to put our methodology into practice. And this will be demonstrated later on in our fourth stage. And what we want to do here is to, allow me to say like this, to validate our validation methodology. So we will use all these procedures and we will make some testing campaigns with different use cases, so we are able to assess the robustness and validate the methodology itself. We've got also a last stage, which is not at the end, it's transversal to the project. We want to achieve this interacting with the stakeholders in the community. So we have created an expert group on testing and validation. And examples like today's webinar is our way to engage in dialogue with you, the experts in the field, because we want to continuously understand what is going on out there. There is a lot of activities going on. There's a lot of initiatives, task forces, work groups that are continuously working or appearing in the field of connected and automated driving. So this is one of the things that we want to achieve with this. We move to the next slide, please, Joaquim. This is a project concept. I don't want to spend too much time in this slide, but mostly you can see here the time flow of how we understand should be the process of validation. And in HEADSTART, for example, I would like to highlight that we are including these key enabling technologies in the whole process. We don't consider them as something strange, alien, or isolated. They are part of the process. We are going to work in this, taking all this into account in the allocation of a scenario. So what is the optimal way to go to virtual testing, proving ground, and field trial as a whole? And finally, after the demonstration, after the testing, we will also work in how do we evaluate the results and how do we share the results. Okay. If we move on to the next slide, Joaquim, please. There. And as I was saying, it's important for us to speak with you. Today is a good example. The whole HEADSTART week is one of the things we do. In the past, we also did some workshops. So what we have done through this expert group is that we have created 6 different sub-working groups. The 3 first of them, cybersecurity, communication, and positioning, answer to these key enabling technologies within the project. But we also have another 3, scenario selection, consumer testing, and type approval, that are also relevant for the needs of the project. And just let me explain you why we want to interact. It's not just that we will share results, which we will do. It's also we want to really hear from you. And if we don't, for example, we have questions or we have if we have a need to have feedback or input from the community, we will ask you. And this will also help us to steer how we develop and what do we implement. We have another initiative, is what we call the joint test action. It's that if you are involved in an activity that requires validation of a connected and automated driving function and you want to work with us, please contact us and we will work with you closely to show you how we are doing this in the HEADSTART methodology and how we could work together. Okay. Next slide. And just a quick update before moving on to the core of today. Just wanted to let you know that if you visit our website, headstartproject.eu, we've got all these deliverables that have already been finished by the project, which you may download. And you can also sign up for our newsletter. You can also sign up for the expert group, and you can, of course, also contact directly for any other question you would have. Okay. Please, can we move on? And I think this is, I think this was the last slide, if I'm not wrong. Just before, there's a thing that just also would like to highlight something before giving the control back to Joaquim. Regarding the Slido, do not wait to make your answers. If you have to make your questions. If you have any question, just write it down in the Slido app. Go to slido.com, put the HEADSTART with the hash, and ask the questions. Okay. And just also one reminder: it might ask you to download or install a mobile application. It's not necessary. Just go through the browser. Okay. So that's from my side. Really, thank you all for being in this webinar. And Joaquim, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alvaro. So yes, you will present the project. Now I would like to go for the methodology, and because you present, so now we know exactly which is the goal of the project, what is the will, which is the purpose, but now we want to address that methodology to resolve all of your questions. And of course, as you said, HEADSTART is not a project that starts from the raw. It comes from other projects with other consensus with other partners, and that provides us some basis to then, when we overcome with the methodology, we can harmonize these present projects, and we can somehow create a methodology that group together all the knowledge that already is in there. So basically here, what we do is a scenario based validation for safety, and we somehow come from this generation input data that comes from the scenario generation. For example, if we have to introduce infrastructure, different behaviors of the vehicle, traffic signs, etc. And we have all this data collected and integrated to a data server, and in somehow organize it as well. And from this data that we collect, we then select what is the needs for our user and for us to validate such data, and to then take this data, generate the different scenarios that are relevant for us. And for this different, when we have the scenarios, we then can go to the testing part, and then we can address in the different levels of testing these scenarios, and then we can evaluate and test them. Here you will see more details of the methodology. We already assume in the HEADSTART project that we can somehow is part of the database scenarios. We already have it, so it's not the purpose to increase the amount of data collected for generated scenarios, but our will is, as Alvaro said, to harmonize the different steps and to integrate different testing procedures in the methodology. So from this database that we already assume that we have, we can select relevant scenarios and stochastic variations. From that, we can subtract from the logical scenarios from the parameter distribution. And here, with the driving function and the different use cases, we can somehow go into concrete scenario. And for this concrete scenario, then we can enrich with this, what we call key-enabled technologies. Key-enabled technologies, as Alvaro said, is communication, positioning, and cybersecurity. And then from such an enrichment of the completed scenario, then we can allocate on the different tests that we have. And from these results, we can then evaluate. So this is the picture that I want to show you not an expert of that for the project, but to have an overview, have an overview of the project, to know then how we are going to address cybersecurity. Because here the purpose is to talk about cybersecurity, but you have to know this full picture, because while we are doing this this process, in some point when we are going to have this computer scenario, we have to address in such file the cybersecurity. And here is what I said, the main focus for us. Then as well, this is the first, let's say, part of the development for the project to generate a methodology. But then this methodology needs to know what to do and how to do it. So from the methodology, we need the approach to say, okay, which is the process and which is the procedure. And here is the second part of this development path. So they have the methodology, we have kind of a model to follow, how to validate that, but at the same time, we have to know how to do it. So if we want to test the special functionality from the vehicle, in this case, so which is the process that we have to follow to address this validation process. So here you see as well how it's reflected in somehow the methods. As you see here, for example, with these middle boxes, you see the testing in the 4 lines is testing different tests that we can do, this virtual test, field test, and so on. But then, for example, you have this input data that comes from the top of the process that provides what is not providing the method, how we are going to test that. So you see that here the process, it comes from this dynamic driving task that we want to test, and with the ODD information. And based on the use case in here as well, we introduce the requirements for the needs for cybersecurity, information needs. Here we address then such functionality that we want to test. And here, as we say, so we have the database, and here we select the scenarios. We allocate the scenarios, and as we said, and we are testing. But what happens with that is, in HEADSTART, we are addressing these key-enabled technologies. And key-enabled technologies, one of the problems that has is that are not integrated on this database. So there's still a need to improve and to enhance such database with such key-enabled technologies. And with positioning, communication, and cybersecurity, it's let's say a new layers information that we have to address it. And as we don't have it in the database, in some point we have to address it. As you can see here, the non-covered requirements of the part that is not covered for the method itself, to enrich, when I show you in that red box in the methodology, to enrich in that part the key-enabled technologies. And that's something here that we are going to address with cybersecurity. And then, as well, you could see that there is an independent bots to conduct this cybersecurity test. And in the next slides, you will start to figure out why cybersecurity is not and somehow well integrated in the key-enabled technologies. And we are going to realize that in the next slides. From here, I just wanted to introduce the HEADSTART project without talking about cybersecurity, just to know how we are doing with this connected automatic driving vehicles, how we are generating this methodology to create different scenarios and to test it, to do some evaluation and validate some functionalities. And now we're going to start to go into details with cybersecurity. So as you said, we are in this, let's say, evaluation validation of the connected automatic driving vehicles, and we have to keep that in mind, because while we are going to test, or we are going to generate such scenarios, we are addressing that in the vehicle level. We want to test a vehicle, and we want to say at the end if this vehicle, we want to assess the vehicle to see if at the end, for example, achieves some certain level of autonomous driving, or if it's the functionalities that he has are working or not. And we are not addressing that in the level of component, because we come from we as well doing that, but we are addressing that basically in the vehicle level. And of course, this, if we think about communication, this vehicle level as well goes into a system level, because we interact with other vehicles, but as well we interact with other users that don't have to be vehicles. Could be what we call user equipment. Could be a light stop, or can be a panel information in the highway. So how we need to start to realize which is our goal to cover here in cybersecurity. And at the beginning, because the process has this common will to be enriched together as a key-enabled technologies, we address V2X communication, positioning and cybersecurity together. But that is, you can think about different key-enabled technologies, and could be that cybersecurity is, and somehow a bit different than the others. If you think about, for example, the functionality itself. So if I have a vehicle and the vehicle has some sensoring and can read, for example, understand the environment and whatever, but I have, for example, an emergency vehicle crossing a light stop in red because it's an emergency, and my sensoring is not able to address that with the communication, so how we can address such problems. But cybersecurity is not providing me a functionality to know better understanding of the environment. And here you can see more or less the differences. So first of all, and before I go more into details with cybersecurity, I want to show you the different projects that we select from the state of the art to go through and to check how to address cybersecurity in this project. And first here, I want to actually put the first question, and the first question is going to be, which have you collaborated in any of the following projects? So is this the selection of the projects that we had as a reference for cybersecurity, and here it's to play a bit with the tool and to know if you were involved in such projects. You here in Slido can write the name of the different projects, and at the end of the slide we will see the result of which of you participated in such projects. But here I want to address such projects because are really interesting projects to take into account for cybersecurity. For example, I'm quite familiar with Secretas, and Secretas is the will to provide safety, security, and privacy on the different systems of the vehicle and provide architectures and technology that then manufacturers or OEMs can use for address cybersecurity. And it's a really interesting project, really huge. For example, we have Enable, and Enable is a project that as well tries to do more or less this validation of cybersecurity, but address it in the system level and really taking in a lot of fields. So not in a just vehicle domain, so in a lot of domains. Then it is as well the will to go through in Europe to this communication between vehicles, and for example, the such projects as Ensemble or ICT for Car are projects that or Safer Tech, of course, are projects that are trying to go in go a step further on this communication and provide, let's say, functionalities, provide technology to enrich this communication from the vehicle. And other projects that are well referenced, and now Julia, you can show us the result to see in the audience who is participating. Okay. So it seems like there is no much participation of such projects. So well, at least you have some references, and you can, if you're interested, you can go through such projects and go more into detail because are quite interesting. Okay, and the next thing that we did for HEADSTART is not just to go into the state of that, as well to go into which is the reference for us, which is the content that we have this as a reference. And here as well, I prepared another Slido asking you if you're familiar on such standards, or which standards are you familiar for cybersecurity. And that's something that it would be as well part of our interest to know if maybe there are other, let's say, information that we can use for cybersecurity. Of course, we try to narrow down from the first focus on the standards that we have in the automotive domain. In this case, the SAI J3061 and the ISO 21434, and these are standards that are quite new. Maybe the SAI J3061 was the first one released and tried to cover partially cybersecurity and try to address this part of the risk assessment with the support of the ISO 26262 and connect activities. And then from the ISO perspective, try to do their own, let's say, independent, even it's as well connected to the safety standard activities. But here in the ISO 21434, you have a full described process to cover cybersecurity in the vehicle, and it's quite new. It's released, I think, it was released at the end of 2019, and is still on development. So I think cybersecurity is something quite new in the automotive industry, and it's something that starts now to be applied. But of course, out of the context of the automotive domain, there's a full of standards, different documentation for different associations. For example, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, this NHTSA, or ENISA, that is the European Union Agency for Cybersecurity, and are just agencies that provide sometimes information regarding the best practice and so on. So there are here different standards as well out of the automotive industry. For example, it's well known the ISO 27000 series, and for example, NIST is one of the ones that has really a lot of information with really particular, let's say, technology addressed for cybersecurity. And then this ISO 15408 that we are going to talk after that. So now, Julie, if you can show me the results, if there is someone familiar with some standards. And yeah, it's good that you know the ISO 26262. It's the safety standard for automotive domain, and that's good that there is that you are aware of the standard, because for example the cybersecurity standard it's covering is following, let's say, the core activities that ISO 26262 is covering. Okay, so good. So the point here that I wanted to show is where we took cybersecurity as a reference from which projects we were focused on, and from which standards we as well had references. And of course, as I said before, cybersecurity is not providing a functionality itself. It's not like positioning and communication. It's more, it's a practice to protect electronic systems, computer, mobile devices. So protects a lot of systems from malicious attacks. And what are the technologies' aim is not to create something new, it's just to prevent security attacks, to mitigate security attacks, and to detect security attacks. And of course, the perspective of the project is to cover safety and to validate safety, but addressing connected vehicles, it starts this security connection, and of course, security we treat as a key-enabled technology, and we want to, with cybersecurity, address the method, use it into a method to validate safety. Safety, we cannot ensure it without as well security. So it's really here the common properties that security and safety have each other and how we're dealing in this methodology. So now I finished the part that I wanted to present as introduction, and now we're going to go through the methodology, and I will ask here if from now you have some questions. So I don't know if you can, Michael, if there were questions, if Julie, you can put if there is questions for the audience. Otherwise, we will go. I'm going to. Sorry.
We have no questions so far.
Okay, then let's move to the next part, because I think that is then more interesting to go through the next parts. So the first thing that I was addressing, and my question was for introducing cybersecurity in the methodology is which is the assets that we have to cover. And here it's a good as well way to ask you if Julie can play the Slido, and now the audience as well, if can please go to the Slido and ask if which are the assets that this project do you think they should cover, and which are the assets that you would even address that are not here. I took this picture for this ENISA. It was this association for European Association for Transportation and Security, and here they have this good practice for security of the smart cars, and they were kind of this reference documentation, and it was regarding a lot of topics in cybersecurity and vehicles, but it was addressing especially, I liked this picture because it provides the full overview of the assets that can cybersecurity connect to the vehicle, because sometimes people is not aware, and we will realizing that when we were doing surveys in HEADSTART in the project, and we realized that sometimes HEADSTART cybersecurity is even not taken into account to do safety validation for connected vehicles. And you can see here the vulnerabilities that you could at the end have in a lot of parts of the vehicle. And please, Julie, if you could put the results. If the people had time to vote, and yeah, you can see here how I would say that communication and let's say systems connected to such asset is one of the more relevant. But you see as well that you can really have a lot. So you can not just take into account just the communication. You can go to the vehicle sensors, the different algorithms to have. So if we would really like address cybersecurity in somehow in a full coverage of cybersecurity, I think it would take ages to validate a vehicle. So Julie, if we can move to the presentation again. So what I'm saying, sorry, yes, okay, it was the second question. Would you add another set of applications with actions in the vehicle control? And it's I don't know if in, let's say, in which technology you would say this application, but it comes in my mind, for example, the technology, well, for example, with the phone, with the phone, you can control it. And it's one example is Tesla, that they have this summon that is with the vehicle, just pressing one button, it's following you in where are you in the parking slot. And this is something that we just start doing that by the communication, but it's not just communication. This communication goes into the vehicle. It goes into the maybe CAN bus. It can controls that which are messages, and CAN bus, for example, has no security in the protocol of security there. So really, it's a really huge impact that we have. It's of how to think about that. And please, we can change now to the presentation. Sorry, because I forgot the second question. Thank you. Okay, I see just a reminder that the questions that you would like to address, don't use this GoToWebinar. Address it directly to the Slido, because we are using a Slido to let's say to interact with you. And of course, you were right. Everything is connected. So if we want to address the sets, we could address all the sets. But as we are in the vehicle level, we are going to focus in the information part of the P2X communication and all connected to the P2X. So I think it's something that then if we can test in this vehicle level, let's say that what we can address is first this communication part. Then what it could be then as well part of this communication, for example, this network and for example, firewalls and so on. And then the user equipment, that we were saying, the user equipment, so how, so traffic signs and lights, etc. Then there is another part that is the software updates, and as well as addressed by communication. And here there is a lot of as well projects addressing that particular asset, and it's good to as well address it in this project. And then of course we cannot ignore the other. So somehow we have to aware that there is some sensors that we have to test. There are this part of as well the communication, the servers, the cloud, the computing. So all these assets we have to take into account, and as well something that is stupid like infotainment. And it's well known this video of chip that someone hacked the chip and could fully control from home the vehicle, and it was because there was no security on the infotainment. And how it does apply such example is as well helping me to address that sometimes cybersecurity don't have just to cover the functionalities, but as well have to cover the non-functionalities, because maybe we are the same for validation for autonomous driving. We don't have to check the same infotainment, but look when we don't check the infotainment. So it's somehow this not full boxes we have to address as well. Some levels, we have to ensure some levels of security. Yeah. So how we address it then in this project was, okay, we can, and so how we have defined the sets. We can somehow in the vehicle level check which are the threats on the different systems that we are going to address, which are the requirements that are allowed, have to be addressed in such a set. And for example, something that is working a lot in Secret is to do this security testing framework. That is something that as well we could include in HEADSTART, how we can do a massive scripting of testing, and from the requirements introduce such test and validate the security in such a sense. But we have our methodology, and this methodology it's not having cybersecurity into account in this way, because in this methodology we come from a scenario, and this scenario is defined by different layers, and these different layers it includes, for example, from the roads and the traffic signs and so on, all these levels to design infrastructure and the scenario. Sorry, we are, let's say, having a concrete scenario. We have the vehicles, we have the vehicle dynamics put it, we have the trajectories, we have the maneuvers, and maybe we want to test some specific maneuver or whatever. While we have this scenario, and we have to enrich that in cybersecurity, and here we are doing that by what we can do in this harmonization part. We can work on the parameters, and we can work on such parameters. And here I will put an example. I will first ask the jury to thank you, to put to active poll, and then I will explain you, because you're going to be able to answer, because it's not an easy question. So how it is done now, we have in a scenario. And for example, we have, this example of someone overtaking a track and put it between tracks. No? And here, for example, we can define some parameters, and some parameters for testing could be into how if we are talking about the vehicle, so the velocity. We can talk about acceleration. We can talk the trajectory. We can analyze some vehicle dynamics of the car, some energy, we can have parameters in such way, and we can collect it. But when we are talking about key-enabled technology, we see here which is the something that could provide parameter for cybersecurity. The time could be one, and with this denial service, I agree that there are parameters, but there are no match parameters. How would say this time it is secure or not secure? So and somehow we have to redefine what is a parameter. And what we are doing with key-enabled technology, not just cybersecurity as well for communication and understanding. The project we did some, let's say, conversion. So we said, okay, it's not a parameter, let's say in meters. Let's say it's maybe a test, and here we can put the test. Okay, so it's let's say I'm defining some requirements, and from that requirements, and the threat analysis and risk assessment, I can organize in a script, and I can do, okay, for example, is for example having encryption, and I can match this in the concrete scenario as a different, let's say, use cases. So I have the concrete scenario, and I have different cases to address, let's say, the different tests that I have, and I transform that into requirement. And for example, I'll say, is encryption? Yes, no. And I can do this pass-fail criteria, aborting that and introducing that as a parameter. But that's the only thing that I can do here. And I will now go as well to the second question. It is the thing that in this point, if we can address, let's say, the testing part in this redefined way, in how we now address it here in the methodology. And please, Julie, if we could see the results for the parameters, and yeah. Okay, so you propose that you as well thought about that. Okay. Well, I see just one answer, so it's not a big. I will take into consideration that, but it's not let's say an easy answer. We had several discussions, and you can go to the next as well questions. Okay, I check it as well. So I am agree with you as well that it's just one I want to how to say, to encourage to address with a Slido. It's easy. You go to Slido, HEADSTART, and please participate, because I think it's good for the audience that at least if you cannot answer, you don't want to answer, address questions, and there's no stupid questions. So yeah, you can see that there's some lacks. So if you want to address cybersecurity, just there, it's a bit just partially. It's not fully covered. It's totally agree. Please, Julie, can we back to the presentation? And we have see here. Okay, you say it as you say that of course we are doing a compromise with the methodology. We're doing a compromise with the process that we have for scenario-based validation, but there is some lack, and I agree with that we have to go and to a next step. And if here we have to go to the fully coverage and integration here, and now I'm going to go to the process. I'm going to explain how we address in the second stage how to cover in more detail cybersecurity. For now, I will, let's say, make use of ask now. Michael, there are some questions. I will, in the meanwhile, drink a bit of water.
Yes, we have 2 questions. I think one is already answered in the meanwhile, but may you want to say some words about that?
Okay. Yeah, can you give an example for a cyber attack that would compromise safety? I mean, there are a lot of examples. So just have to put in a scenario. For example, imagine, for example, in somehow we are driving in the highway and we are, let's say, able to address the communication between the information that we get from in the highway, for example, the speed limit and so on, and we could address one of these smart panels and to trick, for example, the vehicle that now the limited speed is maybe 20 kilometers per hour. Of course, the vehicle has other sensoring, so that would be, for example, a really, let's say, soft attack. That would be one soft attack, but in the other, let's say that there is the possibility for someone to simulate a user equipment with a computer. And let's say that someone is able to go into the infrastructure where we are doing this user equipment and can maybe simulate that he's a vehicle and can interact with the other vehicle. And here can first get some information within the network that is maybe private for the vehicles. Can maybe then try to simulate to be another user equipment. And even go further. Let's see, once you are inside, you can even access to the vehicle. And in the vehicle, you can in somehow modify some. And was example of the application that was just this smartphone application. Someone could have access to the application. And in the meanwhile, I mean, now and Tesla is doing this Summon application, but in the future we will more and more interact by phone with the car, and not just for expensive vehicles. I will say in the next few years we're going to probably be able to interact in a more intensive or less intensive way with the car. So I think that it's why maybe now it's not, because let's say that this is a topic that starts in the past years and is nothing serious happens from you are quite familiar with ISO 26262 as I saw, and you know in the past how many safety problems happens in all the car makers. And for example, with this throttle of Toyota, and how many people, or for example, the auto explosion of Ford, of a Ford as well. So there were safety problems that probably they were following some safety rules, and at the end, let's say, and at the end, you realize more in the next once you release the product. And another thing, you should understand that safety is not like security. So safety, of course, is not static; it's dynamic as well. But security is something that vulnerability can can be detected from one day to another, and then it could be applied worldwide. And such way of expansion, it's something that still we are not, let's say, aware of that, and maybe it never happens. Maybe car makers are following HEADSTART project and that happens. But out of jokes, but I think that it is something that it's really different to safety, and it's something that car makers are going to have to adapt to that, and really to be fast on the changes. Okay, it's the standard ISO 21434. Of course, it is one of the let's say next stages that I'm going to present now. I as well see another aerodynamics in domain. I will check now this paper because I'm not aware if I read it, but thank you for the collaboration. And then as well, the privacy topic. I think it's something that is in the next stage. I think that now the project goes into the cybersecurity applied to safety, but we put as well privacy in included that in, for example, requirements, but it's something that I think that should be addressed more into detail. So as well as cybersecurity, it's a really huge topic and should be addressed more in details, and something that we're trying to do. Sorry, in the project. So, Julie, can you put me back in the presentation? Thank you for the questions. I'm going now to show you. Of course, you saw that partially discovered cybersecurity and needs to be enriched. And here's the wheel. So I want to summarize what. But first we did. So first we treat cybersecurity as a CAT to harmonize CAT, to treat together CAT, and we try to guess, to understand cybersecurity, how it works as a CAT, defined, so the sets define possible threats that we could have, define the requirements on the vehicle level, and then to organize a set of parameters and somehow adapt on the methodology to do a test script and in somehow validate by the different tests that we know the cybersecurity on the specific sets that we define in the specific functionality. That's something we cover. I would say that we really cover a lot of cybersecurity in that, but as I said, cybersecurity it would have an impact not just when we test it as well, because it's something that will keep improving. We can update it, so we need something more. Before we go to as well, I want to mention this cross-line security and SOTIF. We unintended functionalities for the ones who are not aware for the standard. I saw that you come from the safety perspective, few of you. We try now to connect with the safety with security, but as well there is, for this validation of, is not just, let's say, the key-enabled technologies, but now we're addressing here, but as well the different technologies, and we want to address in this way as well, not just, as I said, safety as security, as well this intended functionality. And somehow safety realized that there are some limitations on the scope of the ISO. One is going to this direction, And here is something as well, cybersecurity, I think, has something to do. And we can make profit. I just want to put that slide to make reference that we can make profit of such enhancement on the methodology, because we can as well apply things like that to partially cover security and so on. And here is the example. In this picture, you'll see the example of a drone drawing in the wall. This is the fake traffic speed limit, and how the car is recognizing that, and it starts to accelerate. And here is one of the questions that you said. Okay, why we are not using the standard? And I think that, of course, when we see the methodology, we have such methodology. We cannot do something completely crazy and different. We have to stack, and we have this scenario-based validation, and we have to adapt to that. And safety, sorry, and the standard for cybersecurity is providing a lot of activities. Sorry, talking too much. It's providing a lot of activities that can be really useful for cybersecurity. And we see the standard. If some of you, and here I put as well on the slide on this, Julie, if you can activate. Oh, thank you. Here asking you, have you ever worked on the standard? Because here and so how I the standard is providing a lot of activities that are quite really interesting for our project, and because I think that it reflects what the needs of cybersecurity. And so how we have first of all this management part that as well the safety standard is doing, and has this project as well management, which just the cybersecurity as an organization, and then in the project orientated. But at the same time, it's providing you during the concept phase, product development, the post-development phase, and organize the steps and activities to do for fulfill cybersecurity. And in so how, if we want to guarantee cybersecurity in our assets, we have to know that all the activities that are fully recommended for a best practice for the development of a product that is connected to cybersecurity should be fulfilled. And even including the particularities of cybersecurity, because here could be, this is kind of let's say the basic structure, and here we could compare with the ISO 26262. But as well, for example, cybersecurity is taking into account this continuous cybersecurity activity. This is something, for example, monitoring, event assessment, vulnerability analysis, vulnerability management, that are activities that are not, once you are releasing the product, you can say that it's safe as it is or secure. No, you release a product that today, right now, you can argument that is secure, but at the same time, you have to provide information for the full entire life cycle. And that's here cybersecurity, where it's really relevant, because this entire life cycle, sometimes in the standard product development, is just how maintenance and there are some common activities, but in cybersecurity, it's the particularity activities that are really relevant, and it's not just who are doing that, who are responsible for that. So a lot of really topics that are still open in this standard. And then we have this risk assessment method. And here is really important. It's something that, for example, in the J3061 is really addressed because it provides different risk methods that are really really interesting, and really it's kind of a summary that you have for the organization to apply that. But here at the same time you have this is the risk assessment method that you have, for example, the asset identification, you have the threat scenario identification, you have the impact rating, that is something we didn't talk. We have the pack analysis. We haven't so how to trace the connection of all the threats, how with in the scenario how that would how we can follow that in case of attack, or for example as well a part of risk assessment. And so here is where is the stage now. So we have a methodology, okay? We let's say address the methodology, and we apply to that to the now not to the methodologies. No, now we're doing that to the process. Before I forget sorry, I forget to Julian to put me the results of the question, because I think that is really interesting to know if you're familiar or no with the standard. And the next question, I see the audience is partially, and then is the standard as well, and there is oh, we have a hater here. No, it's of course, you're right here. It's a focus for company, and it's not, how to say, for orientated for validation safety, and that's true. That's true. I mean, it's a best practice for design. So I would say that I'm not agree. That I would say that I'm agree that it's not fully covered. I think that here is the thing is fully covered. I think is relevant. I would say no, fully covered, because ISO is not pretended to evaluate, to validate security, but at the same time, it provides a good guideline. So I think it's useful, really useful. Thanks, Julie. We're back to the presentation. So really, it's really useful. We can say we cannot take that probably as a reference to validate, but we can use it. And here is what I'm saying here. So we come from the method. We saw some lags, and we addressed the key enabled technologies in this box that is here. Additional requirements are covered by scenarios from database, optional. It is this box in the middle of the method of the process. Sorry, and of course we realize that if we want to fully cover cybersecurity, we need a special testing framework in our process. That is something that we show. And now it comes, which is for us the reference to follow. And we go to the automotive domain and we see the standard, the ISO 21434. And it was giving you best practice and covering a lot of activities that were really helpful. But the point is, it's fully covered. And here there was the answer is not is fully covered, because we saw how the standard has some lags. A standard provides your guideline, and it's really helpful for the organizations. I think it provides a lot of best practices and a lot of activities that companies should address. I think still the maturity of the standard is quite new, so we can not, let's say, wait at the expect that the standard is going to provide everything, because it's not providing, for example, a list of requirements, or it's not providing, let's say, some basis to some security steps that would be good to have as a reference. And now we go to the standard that covers that. So common criteria is the standard that I was putting here, the 15408. And this common criteria is a standard that let's say, published for a lot of years. I would say that for more than 20 years, or more or less like that. I'm not now 100% sure, but to do now to be sure that we can somehow validate cybersecurity, we have to go out from the automotive industry. We have to move and see in the other industries how they are doing that. And I think here we have to take as a reference a standard that was really focused for that, to a standard that was really had experience on the topic cybersecurity, but not just for automotive domain, from a lot of things, that provides really information, because it provides a lot of protection profiles, post-protection profiles, a lot of, let's say, requirements that are already been defined for a lot of years, and provides a lot of let's say, support to not just guidelines to cover that as well as providing, and there are common activities for common criteria. Is why I'm saying the ISO is not something that is not useful for us. There's a lot of activities that are common for in the ISO 21434, but of course has to be needs to be improved. And what I'm saying here, I'm showing here how we address specifically cybersecurity. So now we really want to full cover that with a standard that provides the needs that we require for validation of cybersecurity. The standard is divided in three main parts. The main first part is kind of an introduction and delivering the different let's say tasks we have to do during the development of the product. Let's say doing all the stages to have at the end a product that you can validate and certificate. And for that Common Criteria is doing that by offering you what is called protection profile. Protection profile is what I said. I tried to summarize it. Is generic security. Let's say I would say lead selection. So how you select, let's say, the assets that you want to, and in this case, it calls the target of evaluation. You select the target of evaluation. You see in this target of evaluation which is the protection profile, the generic security needs that you will require to apply. Let's say let's say like already a set of requirements and a set of different, for example, in this case, requirements that you could apply to your target of evaluation. And with this target evaluation defined, and with this generic security niche protection profile that you selected, and for example, protection profiles, I'm not aware of how many they are, but there are different protection profiles, maybe 30, 40, that are described different purpose. So addressing corporate systems, communication, so on. And you take the one that you need for the asset, okay? And once you have such protection profile, you apply it. So it's not just the best practice that you have it, like the standard, it's as well how to do it. So it's not just the guideline, it's the guideline, and at the same time, how to do it. And once you have such target of evaluation and you apply it, you end up to the specific security needs for the target evaluation. That is kind of a document that you have all the activities that you, and so how you did for your product to assure that it's safe and secure. Once you have such things that could be as well, let's say, as a result of the standard, let's say, here is what common criteria provide as well. That is not just giving a guideline for all the activities and as well the information to take into account while doing this, as well as then requiring that an independent testing lab is taking this at the end documentation with whatever the product that you're going to have, is testing you this product, the target of evaluation, is evaluating your security requirements, and is evaluating as well the assurance level that you want or you will to apply in such product. So you have let's say, a target of evaluation that we could say that is kind of the item in the ISO 26262. Let's put this to know you more connected, which is the target of evaluation, is the item, and the item with all the different activities. So it's not just the definition of the item. Is why I didn't want to really fully cover that, but it's all the activities that you're doing during the development. And once you have that, you are, let's say, contacting two independent testing lab, providing that once the lab is done, it provides you as well the results. And here is the last step. And authority, and what is they call a scheme in common criteria, the authority is validating the data provided for the independent testing lab and from the work that you did as a OEM, developer, and so on. So here I would then say this is let's say this evaluation of the methodology jumps from the requirements. That's the part that you will at the end with the specific requirements that you're going to get from applying from the protection profile. Once you have that, you go to the test lab. They're going to provide you which requirements you fulfill, if you fulfill everything, which level of assurance. And here, you just don't have just testing, and that's the point. Here, it's just not the penetration test and so on. It's as well documentation, inspection, checks of the activities. Let's say this vulnerability assessment in the domain of the analysis, as well this environment analysis. So there's a lot of stages while you are doing such evaluation of the methodology. And here is where I want to stop, because now it is the point where we are now. And I see that it's 5 minutes left. So I would like really quickly to ask a couple of questions if there's possibility. And then I would like to connect with the next steps and provide you just the full overview of the of the cybersecurity for HEADSTART. So, Julie, if there are, Michael, sorry, if there are questions?
Yes, actually, there's one question left.
Yeah, this is the question that I addressed before. That in so how I didn't check in the aeronautics domain, so I'm don't know this link, but I want to thanks to Jürgen to provide such information for HEADSTART. So I'm going, if you can change again, Julie, for the presentation, because there are like 4 minutes left, and I would just, there are 3 slides more that I want to present it, and then if the audience has more questions, can ask me. So the next steps are, okay, these are this common criteria. It's a really huge standard, and these protection profiles are not fully connected to what are the special needs for the project. And here is what I was saying, say protect the project before, because really here is where this project goes into, let's say, it takes then the protagonism again. So Safer Tech is a project that this goes for this security assurance of network-vehicle technology and kind of addressing this V2X communication. So it's fully fitting with our wills and our assets. And I would say that they specifically design a protection profile for automotive domain, and in this case for communication. And I think that this is really powerful to have such protection profile, and in our way to be able to test and to, let's say, to validate with our methodology using their protection profile and try to validate the cybersecurity vehicle. And that's something that it's really looking forward in the next steps. I think that we don't have to forget that we are in the ISO 21434. So in somehow we don't have to disconnect from the reality in the automotive industry. I would think that it would be really good for the industry as well to have such reference and how to connect to enrich the standard. And then there is this target group, let's say, adaptation, because protection common criteria, it's not just covering, let's say, our target groups as well, and so how is the pretentious to cover these independent testing labs is a figure that as well maybe we could address it. But these authorities, the scheme that are really the ones that are certificating the activities done in the application of the common criteria, it's something that as well has to be discussed. And just the last slide, this is the next step, is refine the process with this common criteria, introduce the standard, and apply to use case. It's something that as well we were explaining this week, this traffic jam chauffeur, this track platooning, and I think that is something that it's a good use cases and to apply cybersecurity. Yeah, this is on time, 1 hour and a half. I hope that would not be really hard for the audience, the last part of the presentation. I would like, Michael, is there new questions now that I finished the presentation in the overall cybersecurity now overview and how we were dealing in each of the steps? And as well, then
We
I
have
will
one
ask
last question.
Yeah. So, can you put me the question? Thank you. Okay. Can you somehow? I cannot see more questions. Can you read it in somehow?
The question is, it seems that you are very focused on testing, but also the concept of security by design is quite important, because it is impossible to foresee all possible cybersecurity attacks. Now it's more a statement than a question, but maybe you want to say some words about that.
No, I mean, that is really important as well for us, and it's something that even it don't seems that that maybe could not be covered for human criteria. As it is as well covered as the ISO standard, and it's just providing not just providing the let's say the okay, since there's no question, there's not providing, let's say, something to just validate. Is why as well want to address in all the stages of the product development the cybersecurity, and we want in somehow to evaluate that by let's say requiring such documentation, and in somehow in a manner that we can, let's say, validate that or argue that the system itself of the vehicle, and which one assess, in this case the vehicle itself, it was designed taking into account cybersecurity. So it's not just not testing; it's as well a proof of a best perspectives. Thank you. It seems you are very focused on testing, but also concept is really important. Yes, this is what I was as well answering, and I'm agree with sometimes. Okay, so if there's no more questions, I think that now we can conclude cybersecurity, and I now can connect with Alvaro again, that is going to provide in the next 3 minutes some summary of the HEADSTART week. Alvaro?
Hello, Joaquin. Thank you very much. Let me share my screen. Now you should be able to see my screen. And yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. You should be seeing now a first slide. I would like to spend the next few minutes making a wrap up of what's been the HEADSTART week, and what have we done, what have we seen, and give you some final recommendations on what's coming next on HEADSTART. Okay, so said this. We had this HEADSTART week. We started on Monday. We had these 4 webinars taking place. Just wanted to give you a glimpse on the facts and figures. We had these 4 sessions, approximately. This is a rough estimation. We need to finish this, of course. Around 220 registrants, 180 attendees, which means a high level of confirmation of the attendees. During the whole week, we have 25 questions made, over 24 polls, and around 436, as I said, round figures. We need to also update with today, poll votes from the audience. So there was quite a lot of interaction with you. And of course, just wanted to say that this whole will be available. So now it's done. I just wanted to remind you that all the webinars will be available online very soon on our webpage. So if you are interested to know more about the rest of the days, if you were not there, this is a good moment to just remind you that this will be there with all the other questions. If we go one webinar at a time, our first one was the one in which we explained what was the methodology of HEADSTART. So we explain how we perform this harmonization of existing state-of-the-art methodologies, what are the different building blocks within this methodology, and we went more in detail into high-level process detail. So we had the chance to have this overview of the methodology, what is the scenario selection approach, what are the relevance matrix that we are planning to use, how are we going to deal with the allocation of the scenarios, and finally, how are we going to test. Okay. Here on the right, you can see the high-level detail. There was more of this on the presentation today, but as a summary, the HEADSTART methodology is not fixed in stone. It's a living process, so we will still need you, even though we have this overall methodology defined, we will still need your interaction to understand what is the progress during the duration of the projects. We need to do this to keep the methodology harmonized and also applicable for different databases, which is one of the things that are also being under development in the context of connected automated driving. Well, there will be more presentation on the detailed process. I just want to remind you that this information, well, this was written before this for today, for example. I just want to remind you that deliverable 2.1 and deliverable 2.2 are those deliverables that we have already finished and in which we describe this in much more detail. So they will be soon available on our webpage. I would really recommend you to visit them, download them, and have a look. Okay. And if you have any feedback, please come back to us. We had then two webinars, one on Tuesday, one on Thursday, that we were focusing more on two of the three use cases that have been chosen in HEADSTART, being the third one, highway chauffeur. So each of these webinars, we wanted to be very interactive with different polls, using a Slido, using the possibilities of making these polls, add questions, as well as added comments. And just wanted to highlight that all this feedback will be integrated in our next deliverable in the project, which is deliverable 2.3, assessment methods for each of the use case defined. So in each of these webinars, we made the introduction, we reminded you of the methodology, and we've followed the methodology according to each of the use cases. So one part on the scenario selection allocation, another section on testing of scenarios, another one on evaluation of test results. And if we go to the particular of each of these webinars, for example, in track platooning, which was coordinated and moderated by TNO, Jeff Van Bonford and Giacomo Luis were there. We had these people attending, and we could have this feedback on feasibility and the value of a scenario-based assessment in the particular case of track platooning. More insights on the required content and format of databases. It's been clear that it's important for the community to have a strong push for clear format of how they should be done, the relevance and needs of different types of testing, and X in the loop was also highlighted as being very important. We also took into account your feedback and the need to include also stakeholders that we are considering, but also new ones that need to be taken into account. Thank you for your feedback there. And there was also more insights and discussion on a specific implementation on track platooning. If we move on to Traffic Jam Chauffeur, the one that took place on Thursday, yesterday, this was moderated by Xavi Sellard and myself from A Placidiada. We had over 40 participants and 20, which is more or less half the people were actively participating in the polls. 8 questions were answered during the session, and with these questions and with the polls, we were able to highlight the importance of SAE level 2 for this particular use case. But of course, it doesn't mean that 3 or 4 are not important, but Traffic Jam Chauffeur in this particular case is important, starting from level 2. Regarding key enabling technologies, communications and positioning were voted as the most relevant ones for this particular use case. There was also some insight on databases. And in particular, the most voted option we had was that these databases should be regional and for all type of vehicles and SAE levels, which it's a good insight, as there were other options, like, for example, having one worldwide overall database and so on. So it looks like it's important that go to the details and more what would be the regional approach to this. Speaking regions would be Europe, for example. Again, as in track platooning, virtual testing has been identified as the most relevant test instance. This doesn't mean that the rest of them are not important, but there is a clear indication that virtual testing, X in the loop, are important for the community. And we also ask about the prioritization of validation objectives. So what should be the object of some of the validation? And the validation of virtual environment and validation of perception in the context of traffic jam chauffeur were also considered to be important. And what are the challenges regarding the challenge for traffic jam chauffeur? Well, we had this result. Liability was voted as the most important one, which, even though it's related to type approval, this was our following voted one. And also we had also some less votes for consumer acceptance and business case. And for today, I tried to wrap up some things. Of course, we would need to better understand what's the situation after this webinar. But I tried to make some notes. I don't need to write this, you have been here. But we had this over 30 participants. We had some peaks, but on average, we had 10 people approximated that were actively participating in the polls. We had the chance to interact with Joaquin with several questions. And as I said, this is just a short wrap up, but we had some overview of the audience insights into cybersecurity. And we also had some good feedback, or even people that have been working in the area, as well as recommendations and several comments and examples given on cybersecurity for events that have in the past, different standards that we should consider also standards for that are in application in other domains, and what would be the scope that would cover cybersecurity completely. And that's from my side. Just wanted to remind you that if you want to know more about HEADSTART project, you can join us in our expert group. As we said, we have this expert group in which we want to have together all the different experts and people that are working in the field of connected and automated driving validation. And we have also made this division in sub-working groups in which we have the 3 key enabling technologies in the project: cybersecurity, communication, and positioning. But we are also having these sub-working groups for scenario selection, consumer testing, and type approval. And today it's a good example, but more things will come in the field. Please join us so you can also be informed about our next steps, our next events, our next interactions. And again, if you join us, we can start this dialogue in which we can provide you what have been doing in the project, what are our intermediate results, and you can also give your feedback about how do you see we should take into account or proceed. And also, if you have a project in which you would like, or a project activity initiative which is dealing with testing, we have this joint testing activity program that if you want cooperation from our side, please let us know and we will support you on your testing activities. So this final thing, we have all our social media, we have our website, but please visit us, get to know more about HEADSTART. We keep on working, we keep on creating new results, we keep on advancing our implementation towards our demonstration events, and we would really love to hear you about us, to hear about you, sorry, to show you how we are progressing, and we have all these different tools available for you, social media and webpage for your information. And that's it from my side. I would really like to spend 1 more minute giving thanks to the team, the HEADSTART team, which have worked very hard during this whole week to prepare the sessions, to prepare the questions, to be there and to present, to give this overview of what are we doing in the HEADSTART project, and we also be able to have this dialogue with you, which I also would like to thank your participation, so we can get all this information, which is very relevant for us and the continuous working on the project. And also would like to especially thank the Ertico team, which have supported for this whole week to put everything in place, to be ready, so you have the best experience in our webinars. And well, I think from the organization point of view, this has been flawless. So that's it from my side. Thank you all. Thank you very much for your interest in the HEADSTART project. Just wanted to let you know that it's more to come, and it's really, really exciting for us, and I hope that for you. Thank you very much, and have a nice weekend. Thank you. Bye.